It's going to say that we're recording, and we are recording. And so this is volume 15 of me building the Get Ride app. And this is inspired by domain-driven design and domain modeling made functional. And just a cool, probably long code kata that I just want to just get better, and develop some muscle memory. And that's pretty much it. So last video I left off with a couple things. The last video, just like other videos, I preached this specification as a library that is going to basically have abstracted out the types for your language and operations and possibly events as well. Okay. And I was able to partition the operations into submodules, your before ride module and your during ride module. All right, these modules have different operations that are relevant to the states of a ride, hence before ride, during ride. Okay. And so that is where I'm at right now. Now, there's a couple things that I think I should take into consideration. Okay. For example, this before a ride, when you request a ride, I feel like maybe this should be internal. If I attempt to build that, oh, hold up, should that be internal? Let me think about this. When you request a ride, can anything request a ride? No, it probably needs to be within your ride domain. I feel like this is optional right now, but if I attempt to build this, I think the compiler will let me know really fast what broke and what I should reconsider as who can request a ride in this before ride module up here. And I'll probably consider doing the same thing for the during ride for requesting a location. So what I mean by internal is some outside client, theoretically, I'm questioning if they should be able to create their own ride requests. Should this be controlled and constrained to a specific type or module that has the sole responsibility of creating a request for you, and that no client from other modules can do the same thing. So it's kind of like a security thing. This mock request is right here. So we see that I believe our test API is creating this, and this should be allowed because this test API is basically mocking out an external. Our test API is mocking out our data access layer, or should I say our data store? Not a data store. Our data. Let me start over. Our test API is mocking out our data gateway. The data gateway is going to be coupled to, or loosely coupled, if anything, to some external system. And it's going to send that request or that query to an external system. So if I go back to operations, this request right here in this before ride, up here, I should probably say that, how can I do this? I could probably say over here, I have a first import your system dot runtime dot compiler services, and I can probably have an assembly like this, assembly, and then I can have a, is it internals visible to right here? And I can say it's the internals of this assembly is visible to my test API. Okay. And is there anything else that I need to do? I need to put a do on the bottom of here. Okay. Now what, Willis? So I could try to build that right now. We'll see how that works out. So now my test API should be right now the only module, or my test API should be the only assembly that has the ability right now to create a request value. Now, I didn't say reference a request value, but create a request value. So I'll still have some compile errors. And I have, next question is, did I put this in the right place? The union cases or fields of type requests are not accessible from this code location. Okay. So this right here is what? This is a request. Okay. This request is what? Well, in my get ride, this request is of a before ride request. That's what this request is. Okay. And this ride right here, that's what it's complaining about. And so it's saying that, hey, you're trying to do this in your ride test assembly, and you're not allowed to do this. The only assembly that is allowed to create a request value is our test API. Okay. So that's understandable. So maybe I could do something like this where I already have a mock request with ride and then mock non-favorable ride query. Hold up, mock request, and then the ride equals a non-favorable query. So I should be able to say mock dot non-favorable ride query. I should say request mock dot request with non-favorable, and this is really long, ride query. Okay, that's really long. Or you could say mock failed request. Maybe I could say mock failed mock request that fails, mock request, mock request non-favorable. I think I'm something like that. And that I need to create. If I go back to my mock, I can maybe do something like let mock or let request not favorable equal, and then this is going to follow the suit up here, I think, of a before ride request. And what this is going to do is we're just going to, this is going to equal, and then maybe we can take this right here and just return that. So we got to get rid of the mock, right? Because it doesn't know what mock is because it's already in the mock module. And we do something like that. Okay. That, I think, should remove some of these errors. And we'll see. We're still getting complaints, but this is because we're trying to access cancel. And well, remember that, so now we have 3 errors. Remember that this request is internal, so we just can't arbitrarily just request.cancel ride and then boom, boom. Well, I think that should be allowed. So I don't know if maybe I could do that. No. That may be allowed. No. Let's look at this again. What's happening? You're trying to access a property and like this line right here doesn't look wrong to me, but we're saying that it shouldn't be accessible. And well, what I meant is it shouldn't be accessible where we shouldn't just be randomly creating requests from anywhere in the application, that it should be controlled for security reasons to the best of our ability. And I mean, I think you can't get past this with reflection, but we shouldn't accidentally arbitrarily create requests that compromise the system. And so this is saying, well, I don't care. You said that this is for internal use only, but if you really want to expose it, then these internals will be visible to our test API. Okay. So over here, there's a function called onCancelConfirmed, and the pattern matches for a ride canceled, and it takes that pending ride, and we want to basically execute the cancel of this pending ride based on this request. Okay. So one thing that we probably could do is, and this is kind of kludgy. This is kind of kludgy what I'm about to do. Like, there's certain things I want to expose on here. One thing that we could do is this request Ah, man. I should have fine grained control and decide what can be exposed. And I'm surprised that I can't do something like this, or that's going to throw a squiggly, or something like this, and that's going to throw a squiggly, or something like this, and that's probably going to throw a squiggly. Okay. Access modifiers are not permitted on record fields. Use type R equal internal or type R equal private to give accessibility to the whole representation. So it sounds like I don't have fine grained control to apply this whole thing towards a cancel. And so maybe I'll revisit this later, but I'm thinking I'm just going to remove this internal use right here, because I should be able to cancel it. I just don't want to be able to arbitrarily create a request. I don't know what happens over here if I do this. That's going to add a whole bunch of other errors. And I don't want those other errors. So now we have over here, request is less accessible than whatever. And that's in my actual mock. So I'm going to leave this alone right now for the sake of trying to get things done. And I'll probably revisit this later. Yeah. So if I attempt to build this and remove internal, which I don't want to do, see, I want to be able to access these properties, but I don't want to be able to set these properties. It's like I want to have a private setter, but a public getter. That's kind of what I want with this. If this were a class, I would be able to do this, but I guess I'm not able to do this. At least I don't know about I can do this where I can just read this value, and that's all I want to do. And yeah, so everything builds right now. I'm just going to leave that part alone. Now, what else? I have this test right here that I'm ignoring, which is fee is generated after ride. And this get ride view model relies on some handlers. These handlers are for cancel requested, cancel confirmed. And that's being used right here. Okay. Now, what I want to do is now I have a in route view model that I've been working on, and it takes a tracking service. So this service.initialize, when I call the initialize method on this view model, that's going to start the timer. That timer is going to, on a certain second interval, it's going to request a location, and it's going to update the location of a passenger, and it's going to broadcast that to any domains or application infrastructure that's interested in that message of the passenger location. Okay. And I mean, I could over engineer this and say passenger location changed if I had another member here and say if this current passenger location is different from the past passenger location, then broadcast passenger location changed. Or I could just continue getting the location. If I continue getting the location, then I think that supports auditing, and that could be useful. So I'm just going to keep this like that. Now, this tracking service probably should have if it has an initialize, then it should probably have an end as well to it, where we can dispose of this timer. So we can probably have a member x dot terminate maybe, and that is a method, and that method is going to say timer dot, I don't know, can we say stop first? Okay. And that might be useful information. I'm not sure if I should address it right now, but we can probably publish how long we tracked the passenger. I'm not sure if that's useful or not. Maybe I shouldn't just create a case for that without having a reason. I'll let that evolve naturally versus trying to throw things in there and adding to complexity. So you have timer.stop, and then you have timer dot, maybe I saw a close in here. Releases the resources used by the system.timers. Was that a method? The stop is a method. Okay. And timer.close, because it says releases the resources used by the timer, I feel like that's pretty much going to call a dispose. Releases all resources used by the system dot whatever. So I'm not sure if this is, I don't know, overkill, but I can try to look up timer, and they call in the documentation, they say timer.stop and then timer.dispose. Do they call close anywhere in here? There's only one of that in close. So in the example, they just use dispose for everything. And so I'm going to do that too. I'm not going to use close. I'm going to use dispose. That's it. All right, so I added an x.terminate method to this tracking service up here. And that complements the service.initialize. Okay. You, my friend, can probably go right here. And you, my friend, I don't know if this is a good idea or not. Sounds like it's not. That doesn't really look like it's a good idea. I'm putting that back. Okay. So we do that. And we have our in route initialize. Okay. Now, something that we probably should do is we should probably sign up for something. Oh, what do you mean sign up for something? We should this tracking service. I'll leave that alone for right now. But somehow, some way, this terminate needs to be called. But that's going to be outside the scope of this, just like initialize is outside the scope of this. So I'll leave it like that for right now. This in route is a view model, and this should, I feel like this in route should subscribe to a ride ended message or notification, no message. And so how can that be accomplished? Well, I'm not sure yet, but we can have member x dot terminate for a view model. Well, we have it initialized for a view model. Do we really need to terminate? What would that even mean? Well, I don't know yet, but we'll follow conventions, okay? And that would be service dot terminate, okay? So I did that. Now what? Well, this is a view model. Okay, so what? Well, this view model, I think, should have the ability to subscribe to an event. Okay. Well, all right. So, not sure what that's going to look like yet, but this view model should, if it subscribes to an event, then we can probably say, I'm not sure what that event is going to look like, but we can say, message maybe. It wants to listen for a message. MSG. And so then it can say MSG pattern match using this function. And we can say something like, what do we want to say? We want to say if this message is a ride ended, then, and that's supposed to be the ride, right? Then we can call our x dot terminate, okay? And so else we don't care and we just don't do anything, okay? Something like that maybe. Well, this ride ended says it's not defined. If I go over here, oh, that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for, is it events? And I want to say ride state dot ended. I want that in my ride specification dot events. So I want to do ride dot specification, but I say dot events, and this ride ended. It says the constructors applied to one argument but expects 0. Okay. I feel like this ride ended probably should have a ride associated to it though, regardless if I need it in this view model or not. So I have that, and that's going to be of what? Well, it's going to be of a ride. This pending ride is here, and it has a ride ID, driver, and vehicle, and that's in my common library. Soon, do I have a ride in here? I don't have a ride in my common library. Next, I check my ride domain, which is right here, and I go to language. And do I have a ride defined in my specification or my ride specification language? I do not have a ride defined in my specification language. What I do have is I have a ride ended and with a ride ID. Okay, I'm not sure if I need that right now. Same thing with this en route. I'm not even sure if any of this stuff is actually being referenced anywhere. No references. No references. But what I definitely need is I'm going to need an actual ride. Okay. And so that, if I have a pending ride in my core, then chances are I'll need a ride in my core as well. Okay. And that's going to have the same thing. Now, do I just call this ride or do I call this en route ride? Not sure. But if maybe I should have an en route ride. Okay. If I have an en route ride, then I can go back to my events over here. And that's not synced up yet. I could try to build, and I should get a whole bunch of compile errors because these have the same properties, but this en route ride is the last one in the file, which means that when I have a record that doesn't have a hard-coded pending ride in it, it's going to automatically think it's an en route ride. And that's probably going to get me in trouble, but hopefully the compiler will identify all the areas where this program doesn't make sense based on the type system that I've established. So I'm building, and I get some errors. And just as I said, here's the errors about suspecting a pending ride, but here as en route ride. Question is, how many errors do I have that's related to this? And it's only 3. Okay. So in here, you could say this mock, this should be bring it back. And I can say that this is, pending ride like that. And that should let me do something like this. Okay. That was easier than I thought. Now what? Well, this ride ended. Now it has a ride. Okay. Regardless, and we don't, in here, we don't really care. We just terminate. And over here, we say service.terminate. Is terminate a good word? No, I don't think so anymore, but we do have an initialize. But we could say on route ended. Okay. Or on ride ended. Okay. Something like that. And if I do that, then do I really need to expose this as a method? I don't think so. I think that I could just expose that as a let um let on route ended like this, and this is going to basically say service.terminate. Okay. So we could do something like that. I keep on saying route, but on ride ended, something like that. Okay. But then again, you probably don't need that because it's only one line. So we could just do this right here. Take it back and say service.terminate like that. Okay. And the ride's not being used right now, so we could just do a wildcard like that. Okay. Is there anything else? Do we want it to be over here or do we want it to be over here? Okay. That may be okay. Is there anything else? I don't think so. I think I'm okay with this. Or am I? We initialize this initialize method takes a message, and for whatever reason, I got caught up and I'm immediately trying to process that message. The initialize doesn't take a message then. But what we do want to do is we want to receive a message and I'm not sure where that goes. Hold up, let me comment this out. And I feel like there's going to be some type of handlers that get executed. I forget how to do this functionally, but maybe there's some type of handlers, and I want this to, not sure how to do this. Say, if I say handlers, and if I do, yeah, I'm not sure how to do this right now. what I want to do is I want to subscribe to a message of a ride ended. And I think I did this. I think I did this in another view model. So I could try to ride view model, get ride, and actually I can reference my test and that should tell me how this was done. So ride.test, and for cancel ride, you have a confirm ride request, and I have handlers in here that's injected to my view model. And these handlers, I have, that stuff gets broadcasted to, but there's also a on cancel confirmed, okay, that I have right here. And so that's similar to what I have over here, or what where am I at? That was similar to what I thought I had in here when I had a method called onRideEnded, right? Okay. So this onRide confirmed pattern matches for a message, ride canceled, and it does its thing over here. Okay. So how did that work? Well, it's still based on handlers that were passed in. And what happens is I create a copy of those handlers and I append another function to that copy of handlers and I broadcast that handlers. I broadcast the handlers for another system to basically receive, and then it may execute. And when it's iterating through the functions within the list of handlers, this on cancel command is able to get executed only when it publishes this function to the list of handlers that it already has. And that's how that works. Okay, well, that's kind of complicated. But that's how that works, and that is the test that documents that and demonstrates it, right? This test right here. So I think I was on track when I said that there needs to be some handlers, right? And what's going to happen is, what's going to happen if I reference the get ride, that stuff, that ceremony was the result of a view model command that invokes a request cancel. Okay, in this case, I think this is just going to be done in the initialize. Oh yeah, and this phone's ringing. Why is she calling me? So I could probably push this either under here and do something like that. Okay. Now what else? In this initialize, I can say let handlers, and this is me literally just trying something out, equal handlers. In this case, we're going to have our onRideEnded as the head and our handlers as the tail. And it doesn't like that. Invalid record or whatever. Oh, yeah. Because handlers is a list, not a record right now. And so we have this handlers, and then we probably want to publish. Uh-oh, what just happened? Probably want to publish handlers. I say publish, but I say broadcast to. So I say get ride.core. You want to broadcast to what? To these handlers? Is that how I did it? If I go to my get ride over here, I have pending ride and handlers, and I broadcast to a property of those handlers. Okay. So in here, I'm going to have what am I going to have? Something. I'm going to have something as a tuple. In handlers. And this is going to be a message. I'm not sure what that something is. And I'm going to broadcast to handlers. All right. Do I really have to have something? No. Maybe I could just have this right here. And that doesn't really look right. It says type mismatch expecting a unit, whatever, but given whatever. So this handlers is a list of functions in which each function within this list takes a unit and returns a unit. Okay. Well, that handler shouldn't take a unit. It should take a ride state. Okay. So in here, I can probably say ride state, and it's going to return a unit. And oh yeah, by the way, this is going to be a list of these functions. So I'll have over here that this is a list and unit like that. Okay. So this on ride ended, that needs to, do I have this right? On ride ended takes a message, and so then we take that message, and we can then do this over here and say this will be a function. Okay. And then over here, we say this equals ride ended. Then we say service dot terminate like that. Okay. Okay. So now what? We have our on ride ended, which takes a on write ended, it takes a write state and returns a unit. So now that's happy. And then we have our handlers equals boom, boom. And we want to take our handlers, which in this case is a list, and we are trying to broadcast that to handlers again. And so this is going to say something's not right here. The type write state unit list, or the type a function or a list of functions that take a write state and return a unit does not match the type write state. And so handlers is the function of write states that return unit. And it says it does not match write state. And so this broadcast 2, if I go over here, it takes handlers and it takes a message, right? In this case, there are 2 different types, A and there are 2 different types. So this right here, this handlers needs to be a type as well. And it says type mismatch, expecting write state unit, something, something, something. We know that our handlers, it's this right here. Yeah, this is going to take me a while to figure out. I'm out of fuel right now in regards to mine, but I'm almost there. And actually, I want this here to go here. Okay. If I go reference my get write, this took a tuple broadcast handlers for whatever broadcast to. In this case, let's say I just had one. I'm still going to have the same issue, right? So the type int does not match the type write state. Okay, so I need a write state. Okay, that's what it's complaining about. Now, what do I want to communicate? This in route, well, we don't want to publish a write state, but that's what this handler is. Okay, well, that's what these handlers are. What we want to communicate is we want to broadcast. Do we want to broadcast anything? I'm not sure if we want to broadcast anything. All we want to do is be able to subscribe to a ride has ended, right? But this en route is a view model. And so one can say that when this en route is instantiated, then we probably can publish a message saying that we're en route. But I would assume that this whole view model would get spun up based on a en route message being broadcasted in our app logic, which is in our app foundation, would go ahead and basically spawn an en route. That's what I think. Okay, so let's just for right now say en route message. Okay. And that en route message, where is that at? That's referring to that up there. Well, no, we want our en route message to be ride state.en route. So you could have ride state dot en route, and you broadcast that to your new set of handlers. Okay. So this compiles. Now we can also do something like this right here, which means that we can eliminate this maybe and do something like this. Okay. Whatever happened to that message? That's not needed. Okay. So let me review. This is the en route view model. Right now it's going to expose the initialize method. That initialize method, once it's called, is going to initialize our tracker. Maybe I should call that tracker. That's what it is. And in addition to that, we're going to declare a function called onWriteEnded. And that function is going to pattern match on a message that it receives. And when it receives a message saying that the ride is ended, it's going to terminate that tracker. Okay. Right now, we're going to assume that this en route view model will basically, because we're in the en route view model, we'll send a message saying that we're en route, which I don't like that. I really think that a message that's en route, an en route message should result in this view model being created within our app logic up here. But just to get the compiler to be happy, I went ahead and wrote this en route right here so that I could basically broadcast the new list of handlers. That new list of handlers is going to be used within our app logic more than likely, or it's going to be used somewhere outside of this view model, in which it's going to receive a notification that the route has ended. And in turn, it's going to execute all the functions that are associated to a route ending. And this on ride ending, I keep saying routes. This on ride ending or on ride ended is one of these functions that get executed. So I don't like having this in here. This, yeah, but right now it is what it is right now, and it'll get corrected later. In regards to this test of fee is generated after ride, that is still work in progress. We should call this service a tracker. Okay. And let ride ended equal create ride ended. That stuff right here, I'm still going to leave commented out, and I'll address or attempt to address in the next video. Now, if I attempt to run my test, I don't think anything should have broken. So I'm running the test, and we'll see what happens. It takes a while to build, but hopefully everything should be green. And this is taking a really long time and something didn't compile. Okay. What did not compile? This right here, this en route takes a, oh yeah, I forgot. We need some handlers. I don't know. We'll throw this in here, and that's a list of handlers. And then we'll attempt to build again. And it builds, and then we can try to run the test. And the tests all pass except for this one test that is ignored. And that's fine. So I'm going to check in this code and say partial support for en route view model and ride ended notification, something like that, and commit all and push. And that's it right now. So I'll take a break and I'll probably pump out another video later on today as I continue this exercise of building a Git ride app. And that's it. So I'm out and stop broadcast.